So for those who are watching the video, and it looks like we ended. I realized we ended a half hour early. I thought we were ending a half hour late. So we're going to use that last 30 minutes so we can get through the rest of these little bit before we get into the war between the states. This will save us time next week, and it kind of makes sense. All right, I want to pull up a map of U.S. We have acquisitions. Yeah. Purchase Mexico. Oh, wow. All right, let's see. Okay, this might be good. There we go. That's the one I want. Perfect. Okay. So look at these maps here. Okay, so here's some important things that happen. The original United States, right? We had the War for American Independence. In the French and Indian War, the English had already essentially captured this territory from France, or this was disputed territory. So America then took access to it, right? So that all happened. In 1803, we had the Louisiana Territory purchase here. That's the one we talked about a little earlier today. In 1819, remember, as Spain is having problems maintaining their empire, these empires are falling apart. They sell us Florida. In 1845, we just went through the war for Texas independence. That's when we gained Texas. It also gives us a little piece of Colorado and Nevada in the process. So we gained this by annexing Texas. That's a huge acquisition. In 1846, the Oregon country, 1846, is owned jointly by Spain, had some of it. England had some of it, because remember, England owns Canada. And Russia, believe it or not, has some of it. Why is Russia involved? Where's Russia on the map? They're just over here across the land bridge, right? In certain times of the year, that land bridge will freeze over, so you can actually get there. And it, obviously it doesn't freeze over as much, but even during the ice ages, that's when, by the way, that's where a lot of this was populated. It used to be a permanent land bridge, but they seceded this territory. So we got that in 1846. In the 1840s, right, the Oregon Trail. You guys know about this? Okay, so the Oregon Trail, the reason we get the Oregon Territory is basically during the 1840s, we're sending wagon loads of people because nobody really knows who owns Oregon. Nobody's claiming it. So we're just sending in immigrants. We're sending in colonists who are coming over. We have the most presence. Other nations like Russia doesn't have anybody over there really. Spain's falling apart anyway, so they give up their rights. Canada, most of the British Empire in Canada is in the east, so they kind of give up that territory. And then in 1848, after the war with Mexico ends, not only do we get Texas, they a few years later, because Santa Anna runs into problems, concede to us Mexico, California, the rest of Nevada, and then later on we purchased this little slab right here. You guys following me? Okay, so those are our land grabs or land. They're actually all done legitimately, every single one of them. So people say we stole the land. No, we did not. Now again, we have to deal with the individual Indian tribes, and thus far to this point, except for this Cherokee, who I glossed over. I'll get back to them later on. Cherokee and there's another tribe that we do wrong. Cherokee, maybe. Oh shoot, it's not coming to me. On Trail of Tears. I'll get to them later because that's another. I covered the Indian Wars, but right now let me get through these. Okay, so war. Then what happens is we did the war with Mexico. We covered this. Texas is annexed. Mexicans incursion the Rio Grande. Okay, so now we're going to get into the war. Oh, I'm sorry, we hadn't gotten into the war with Mexico. We hit the war for Texas independence. I need to hit the war with Mexico, and then I'll hit the. I got to check my outline to see if the next thing is going to be. Okay. War with Mexico. How do we end up in a war with Mexico? They just fought for Texas independence. We annexed Texas in 18. 1836 is the Battle of San Jacinto. 1845, we annex Texas. Texas disputes the annexation or Mexico disputes the annexation of Texas and challenges where the border is. The border, we believe, is right here on the Rio Grande. They say, no, Texas doesn't own the Rio Grande. They actually own further north. So now there's the border dispute. But now, because it's an annexed territory, we're able to send federal troops down there and patrol the border of the Rio Grande. A border dispute ensues, and that basically starts the war. Mexicans they actually go across the Rio Grande. They kill all of 16 U.S. soldiers. How many soldiers do they need to make it, a legitimized war for us? One. One is probably sufficient, right? But they kill 16, and really they're saying, no, the Rio Grande is not the border. We're saying Rio Grande is the border, and the war begins. And now they're challenging the U.S. might. This is where it gets interesting, and this is where I just want to walk you through a very interesting character. Who's doing that? Does everybody have a reading? Research. Let me take out this. I kind of gave you Sam Houston. So Thomas, I'm going to take you off of Sam Houston. I'm going to give you something different. I am going to give you Winfield Scott, General Winfield Scott. I kind of covered Sam Houston. Crockett, or you got Crockett. Okay, good. Everybody's got an assignment, correct? Right, we're set. Okay, so I'm going to give you Winfield Scott set. General Winfield Scott. Remember, we had 1803. We have a formalized military at this point. General Winfield Scott is the best general of the war, hands down. There's not even a question about it. He's a very talented general. He has earned his reputation in fighting some Indian wars. He's fought. I believe he was involved in part of the Texas War for Independence, and he becomes the de facto general in chief, who's given the task of go defeat the Mexicans. So we have the Mexican-American War. Go ahead. What's up? What was the time it started again? The War of Mexico starts in 1846, right? The year after Texas joins the Union, and it goes to 1848. Winfield Scott is an interesting character because he's a very talented general, but he has a number of folks who serve under him who will be of interest to you. Let me give you the list of captains at the time. There's a very important captain who is his chief of staff, Captain Robert E. Lee. As a captain, Robert E. Lee actually, most of the generals under Winfield Scott, they bring complaints. They're fighting a war at a very far distance from their base of support, right? Their base of support is all the way back here, probably in New Orleans, maybe Texas, and they're down here fighting in Mexico. The Mexican troops are decent quality troops. General Scott, however, is a better trained general, and he's outmaneuvering. They're roughly well equipped on both sides, but this is a rise in professional. Everything okay between you two? You guys keep exchanging glances. He's falling asleep, or questions about things I'm saying? Okay. Everything good? Sure. Okay. Hang with me. We need to close that computer? Let's close that computer. Are you taking notes on it? I'm taking notes. Okay. All right. Okay. So Winfield Scott's a good leader. He's Captain Robert E. Lee. Captain Robert E. Lee ends up doing reconnaissance. He's an engineering officer originally, so he's brought out there to be an engineer. But they need him as a chief of staff, and he gains a reputation for being a guy who gets things done. He ends up spending a lot of his time doing reconnaissance. He actually conducts some personal reconnaissance. He spends the night getting captured. Oh, not captured. He's behind enemy lines when a squad of Mexican cavalry overtake his position. He hides in a log and survives the night listening to the Mexican talk. He's expecting to be captured at any point. But through that, he gains some intelligence about the movements of the Mexican army. He goes back, he reports what he finds. And General Scott likes Robert E. Lee so much that he often seeks his opinion instead of his senior generals. The senior generals are mostly political appointees and just have complaints. He's tired of it, right? he wants guys. So he'll go to Robert E. Lee and say, okay, plan this invasion, and he's the operations officer. He'll write the op order for it. He'll make it happen for the next battle. At the end of the war, he's so popular that he's given 2 ranks of promotion. He's taken from captain to lieutenant colonel. It's almost unheard of. But there's a couple other officers that serve under him as well. There is another general by the name of Lieutenant, his first lieutenant, Thomas Jonathan Jackson. You know who he is? Stonewall Jackson. He gets a reputation as a platoon commander. Since platoon commander, he's primarily an artillery officer, for being so effective with his artillery batteries and so aggressive against the Mexican army. He displaces multiple positions. At the Battle of Chapultepec, he goes over the top. And the culminating battle of the war is the Battle of Chapultepec, right? You guys have sung the Marines hymn, right? From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. The culminating battle occurs at a tower in Chapultepec. Let me get you a picture of the fortress of Chapultepec so you can see it. Actually, storming in the fortress. Storming fortress Chapultepec. That's pretty good. Let's take this picture right here. Looks pretty good. This is a good start, right? This is what it looked like. This was everything you would think of a fortress. It's got high walls. It's elevated. I think it's like 30 feet up. It's 200 feet up from ground from here, going up a hill to a fortress on top of a hill. This is the definition of military insanity, right? You're charging up a hill into a fortress on a fortified position in which the Mexican army is holding the ground. Here's the numbers again. There's 1,000 defenders inside this Mexican castle, 1847. A 200-foot hill and 15-foot walls. Anybody want to lead that charge? A few guys do. One of them is Thomas Jackson, Stonewall Jackson. He's leading first with artillery, and then he goes over the top with the assault. You'll see a number of these generals go over the top. He's not the only ones that go over the wall, but they hoist these ladders, put them up over the wall. The Marines go in. This is a famous battle that, once again, they lead with the Marines. Interestingly enough, we're going to see the Marines reappear in Robert E. Lee's history shortly. But the Marines gained significant reputation for the first time in history here at Montezuma. The U.S. Marines, they go in fiercely over the top. Thomas Jackson's reputation of being so able to, not only in this battle but in multiple battles, able to maneuver against the Mexican army, defeat them, uses artillery and his infantry effectively. He's promoted 3 times from the rank of lieutenant. So he goes lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major. He's made a major at the end of the war, right? Whereas Captain Lee, who's senior to him, was made lieutenant colonel. So he ends the war with great accolades. But here's some of the other commanders who are under there as well. Remember these names. Lieutenant Ulysses Samuel Grant. Lieutenant James Longstreet. Lieutenant George Gordon Meade. Lieutenant William Tecumseh Sherman. Any of these names sound familiar to you? Who are these guys going to be?
Main players in the Civil War.
They're the main generals in the war between the states. Absolutely correct. All of them are serving side by side in the war with Mexico. Several of them know each other very well. Included among that number, close friends Sam Grant and James Longstreet. Think about the significance of this. Robert E. Lee didn't know very many of those. He knew him by reputation, but Robert E. Lee was known by all of them. He held an incredible reputation coming out of West Point. He's the only cadet in the history of West Point to make it through West Point without a single demerit. He had demerits for the slightest infractions. Robert E. Lee got no demerits in 4 years at the academy. So he had a stellar reputation. He graduated #1 in his class, and on he goes. These guys were all impressive characters. They kind of knew each other. So when we get into the war between the states, you're going to see some fascinating histories of these guys coming together. Battle of Chapultepec. By the way, pretty aside, there's some other heroes that are in this war as well. A guy by the name of George Pickett. Anybody heard of George Pickett? He's at the Battle of Chapultepec. He goes over the wall. He goes over the wall with Jackson and the others. Grant goes over the wall. Here's another general that's there. General Joseph, or no, I'm sorry, Captain, Lieutenant at the time, Lieutenant Joseph Joseph Eagleston Johnston is a lieutenant in this war. For our uses, one of the things worth noting, the Marines, when they go over the top of this castle in the first wave, take 90% casualties. 90%. You ever see me to wear a Marine Corps uniform, blue trousers with a red blood stripe? That blood stripe was earned at the Battle of Chapultepec for the blood that was bled primarily by the NCOs during that battle. So a little bit of extra history for you guys. Eventually, the Spanish surrender. I should say the Mexicans. So I'll change that. Eventually, the Mexicans surrender, and they concede Arizona, California, Nevada, and parts of Colorado and New Mexico. Okay, so the takeaways from this, the key takeaways are those names. These guys served together. In the interwar years, I'm going to go print off my last page here, so I'll get one more page. Find that page. Hold on. Fine. Actually, I'm going to print it. I'm just going to go back and look at it. Hold on. There it is. Battle of Chapultepec. Okay, I'm into here. Slavery, Confederacy. Okay, no, I'm going to stop here on this. What's important to note in the interwar years, we have a series of skirmish wars in California and in Texas with Indian tribes. I'm going to get into the Indian wars more specifically by war later on. But for the majority of those Indian wars, we are more in the right than we're in the wrong. Contrary to public opinion, as you research them, like, for example, the Creek War, which is one we're accused of being in the wrong, we're actually in the right. For most of those wars, we're in the right. A few of them were not. A few of them were actually, we kick the Cherokee off the land, we take it, and I forget the other ones. But a lot of these wars, like the Apache Indians were the most brutal. And there's disputes over land, and that's fine. It's not the disputes that cause the problem. It's the way the Indians typically handle it. How do the Indians handle the disputes? Kill who? Everybody. They'll go into. So what happens is when these land disputes, hey, you guys are encroaching too far. No, we're not. This was the line of demarcation. No, it's back there. We go into a sequence of negotiations. And communications are very slow in those days, right? We have to send letters back to courts here who are trying to bring them to the table. Can we negotiate this? The Indians don't follow the rules of American Western society, most of them. Like, no, we just told you. Yeah, but we're working on it. We're going to negotiate with you. No, you're not. Get off the land now. Well, we're not getting off the land now. We're waiting for, and they come in, they massacre everybody. That's what happens in most cases. Once they conduct a massacre, and their massacres are brutal. They kill the men. How do they kill the men? Scalping. They cut off the tops of the heads, let them bleed out. It's really brutal. They rape the women, and they enslave the children, and they burn them. They burn down their houses. This is why they're called the brutal Indian savages. Most of the enemies, not all of them. Again, there's a few of them that come in and they're like, okay, we understand the white man. We're going to negotiate with you, and it doesn't go well for them. Those ones we did abuse, but most of the time, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. In most of these Indian conflicts, we are in the right. The guys that fight in some of these Indian conflicts, let me get out of this so I'm stopped here, so I can stop sharing my screen. Did you guys see that screen? I guess maybe you did. I don't know if I shared screen. We are at war with Indian tribes who are doing that in California and in Texas. A lot of these officers, including Robert E. Lee, Robert E. Lee, when he gets out of the military, he kind of goes back to be a farmer. He's not a very good farmer, as it turns out, right? He doesn't take to farming very well. He inherits, this is important about Robert E. Lee, he inherits a plantation from his father-in-law who passes away. On the plantation are slaves. He doesn't know anything about plantations. He likes the biblical model of slavery. Like, these guys have been in slavery for a long time. So he, following the biblical model, is endeavoring to educate and free these guys. It's not as easy a process as you would think. You would think you could just go up and say, go be free. If he releases slaves like that, what's going to happen to them?
Pretty much, they're gonna become homeless, and then they're
They become homeless. Somebody else might just capture them and turn them back into slaves. So what he has to do for that process of that, he's got to educate them. He wants to prepare them, and then he's actually sending them out with a little bit of resources. But it's not easy to do. Okay, hey, listen, as he transitions them, you guys kind of work for this number of years. When you leave, I'm going to educate you. I'm going to give you some money, give you a little piece of land, 40 acres and a mule, and off you go, kind of thing. Right? That's what he's trying to accomplish. It's a slow process, but understand Robert E. Lee's mindset. It's really important when we get into the war between the states. When we call our battalion Lee Corps, you can rest assured Robert E. Lee was not. He was technically a slave owner. He wasn't trying to be. He landed into it backwards, and he's trying to end it. But we'll get into that later on. In fact, when the war starts, he approaches the Virginia legislature and says, "Gentlemen, free the slaves now, or it will be the whip with which the North eventually whips us." So he opposes it. That's a longer story at the moment. That's Robert E. Lee. Unfortunately, he can't stay at home. He's not a very good farmer. He doesn't like doing all this stuff. He's not good at land management. He's failing economically. So he turns the running over of Mount Vernon to basically his wife. Says, "You handle this. I'm going to go fight Indians in Texas." Not a very good marital decision. But he wasn't planning on being there as long as he went. He went for like a year, and he was going to come back. He said, I'll do that for a while. I'll come back. He gets paid for it. But he wants to stay engaged. So he goes. While he's gone, there's a couple other guys I want to tell you the story of. And I'm going to hit the story again later, but I've got 5 minutes. I'm going to use it. There's another guy who is named Winfield Scott Hancock. Who was the commanding general in the previous war? Winfield Scott, right? He was named after General Winfield Scott. They actually meet. General Hancock is probably the best, if not maybe the second best general in the United States Army during the war between the states. Very good commander. At this point, he's a major in California. His close personal friend fighting in California with him. By the way, all these captains and lieutenants, all these guys that I mentioned, Lieutenant Grant, now Major Grant, Johnston, he's like a major. All these guys are captains and majors now, like majors and some of them lieutenant colonels, are fighting Indians together in the cavalry, all becoming like cavalry and infantry officers in Texas and Mexico, serving alongside. But two that are of extreme interest are Winfield Scott Hancock, who's he's a good infantry officer stuck in an adjutant's post in California. He's in command of a warehouse as a supply officer, just him. Aggravating position for him because he's stuck there managing his giant warehouse full of resources, trying to protect it from the Indians and from the local Californians who are now trying to capture it, and the Mexicans who are trying to capture it and say, no, you guys are still part of Mexico. He's stuck in that mess. He doesn't have any troops. But his friend, a guy by the name of Lothario Armistead, they're friends for many years. They grew up together at the academy. They served together, comes to his aid. He brings the cavalry, literally brings the United States cavalry into town, saves Hancock. And they're close friends. They spend time together in California. Hancock, if I am not mistaken, is from, I think he's from Maine. He's from one of the northern states. Lothario Armistead is from South, different states. They're very close personal friends. War comes up between them. They both have different opinions on it, but they're able to get along and recognize those opinions. You're going to see those two names come up at a defining moment in history. But I want you to understand the friendship of that. That would be a good deal like Braden and Thomas, you guys together. Let's say it was a Braden, Dean, and then you guys, right? Going through the cadet program together, going off to be Marines together, serving together, and 15, 20 years from now, you guys are on different sides of the same war. Utterly tragic. We're going to see the outcome of what happens to Lothario Armistead and General Hancock. In their parting scene in history, Lothario Armistead has to leave first. He's leaving poor Winfield Scott Hancock because all these guys are now being promoted to colonels and being sent back to go fight in the war. Poor Hancock, they leave him in California. Somebody's got to take care of California. It's you. And everybody's like, Hancock and Reynolds, you guys are the best commanders in the Army. Why are you leaving him in California? Well, he's going to handle California. So he's sitting the war out because he got no choice. Lothario Armistead, in a Terry scene, when he gets his orders and he's going to go back, he goes to Winfield Scott Hancock, his friend Hancock. He says, Winfield Hancock just got a promotion to major. Lothario Armistead's already a major. Gives him his uniform, his U.S. uniform with major's rank on it. Let me see, because getting uniforms back then with a pain in the neck. He gives him his uniform. Here you go. You're my friend. Take this with you. And he makes a vow. May the Lord strike me dead if I ever raise my hand against you. And when he goes off to war, for much of the war, he prays he never has to face Hancock on the field of battle. As history would have it, they will find themselves, every battle they're able to avoid each other until the Battle of Gettysburg. Lothario Armistead is across the field directly from Hancock. I'll save the rest of that story for what happens then. you don't want me to leave it there? Okay, all right, I guess I'll finish this. Okay. The culmination of the entire war between the states occurs on the field of Gettysburg. It is the turning point of the entire war. Prior to Gettysburg, the Union loses every battle, virtually every battle. At least in the East, they lose them all. There's going to be some parallels as well. I'm having you read Judges. We'll come back to this later. The Confederacy is winning every battle. In the West, it's a little bit different. Gettysburg, if they lose Gettysburg, if the Union loses Gettysburg, they will lose the war. The war is this close to being over. You have a Confederate army invading Gettysburg that has never been beaten in battle. Robert E. Lee has not lost a single engagement. And he's won some stunning victories against an army that is almost always 2 to 3 times his size. He's crushing it. We'll get into more of that later. But there's a twist of God's hand gets in the middle of this. And the Confederacy, the most talented, and they're winning battles because they have talented commanders in place already. And those commanders make good tactical decisions. On the opposite side, all of the talented commanders are stuck at low-level commands, brigade-level commands like Hancock. Hancock's finally a division commander there. And they're not promoted. They have a bunch of political appointees who do not know how to fight. So the men know how to fight, their leaders don't. And the script flips in Gettysburg. I'm convinced through the hand of God, he causes some of the finest commanders in the Confederacy 3 major mistakes, which we'll get into later. The culminating battle is fought by General George Pickett. Remember him? He went over the Battle of Chapultepec. Under objection from General Longstreet, General Lee orders him to assault the center of the Union line, which is held by probably one of the only few talented U.S. officers on the field. It's held by then Brigadier General Winfield Scott Hancock. And Colonel Lothario Armistead, General Lothario Armistead, who's not a brigade commander, under George Pickett, is the front line of that attack into Hancock's assault. He has to cross a mile-long field under fire with his men. And he'd ask several times during the battle, who's on, and they all know, by the way, who's on the other side of this hill. They know, they can read the corps, they can read the symbols of the corps and the brigades. They know who they're fighting. He even turns to Pickett, he goes, that's Wynn over there. George, in a very teary scene, goes, Lou, I'm sorry. Because I swore I'd never raise a hand to harm that man. But I have a duty to do. May God forgive me. And he, at the head of his brigade, charges across this field, which is covered with more fire from every direction than you can imagine. The only way his men could see him over the smoke is he takes his hat off his head and he sticks it on his sword and he holds it up high. In tears, he's coming across this field of battle. Lothario Armistead miraculously survives all the way into the position. He and a handful of men actually breach the US line, which is unbelievable considering the odds. He gets behind the line and he's shot and mortally wounded. He's going to die. He knows he's going to die. The man who shot him comes up to his aid. Such chivalry. He says, "Sir, General Hancock somewhere about." You know, he fell just moments ago. And Armistead, he says, "Is he dead? We don't know yet." Thario's heart breaks in the seat. And he's in tears. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I should never. I told him I promised not to hurt him, and I didn't fire. He didn't fire a shot. I tried not to. Tell him I'm sorry. Moments later, he dies. The message makes it back to Winfield Scott Hancock. His brigade just won the war, and the man is in utter tears. Brother versus brother is encapsulated in that moment in all of history, in no greater scene than watching Lothario Armistead die on that field at the honorable hands of US troops who are trying to actually save his life, and they can't. And him apologizing. From that moment forward, the remainder of the Confederate Army streams back across the field, and they will be defeated over the next 2 years, steadily over battle. That was the high water mark. And that scene, more than any other scene in history, will bring that together. The end of the movie of if you get to the movie of Gettysburg, there's a handful of scenes you really, really want to watch. One, if you can't watch the whole movie, watch these. Watch General Buford just takes the hill, takes Cemetery Ridge. First troops on the battlefield. Watch that. We're going to watch it, a portion of it in class, but watch it, get the context of it. Then later on, there is a scene with General Longstreet where George Pickett and his commanders come to his campfire. It is the most jovial scene in the movie. You have to understand, George Pickett he's this ultimate chivalrous character, and he's so frustrated. Remember the guy who went over the top at Chapultepec? Every battle that happens, somehow, it's not on purpose, he's in the back. Everybody's fighting, and he's stuck guarding the wagons. He and his boys, Lothario Armistead, Penderton, and I forget the other guy, Dick Garnett. They're like, and he's talking to his commander, General Longstreet. General, can we please get into this fight? And there's one scene where he's like, well, you're at the back of the column because you want me to stop the whole army so you can get up here and fight. Would you do that for me? George, can't do that for you. Fight's going on. And it just so happens he shows up on the last day. He loves these guys and they love each other. I mean, there's great love between these Confederate commanders. And James Longstreet objects to this attack over and over again to Robert E. Lee. This is foolish. No 10,000 men ever assembled for battle could cross this field. Almost exact repeat of what happens at Fredericksburg in the first. And when he's given the order, Robert E. Lee says, well, you do have one fresh division because it's a 3-day fight who hasn't fought yet. That's Pickett's. And Longstreet's heart drops. Not only does he know these are his closest friends he's ever had in Longstreet's division, but he also knows that Lothario Armistead is going to lead that attack against Hancock across the hill. And when he initiates the attack under objection, nothing more Longstreet can do. He puts his head down and he's in tears before the first troop steps off because he already knows the outcome. Watch that scene, and if you watch two other things you need to see. Do this. You will need to watch the 20th Maine and on Little Round Top, the Battle of Little Round Top. That's on the second day. And then watch this scene, and then watch Pickett's charge. These 4 scenes right here. If you get nothing else, watch those 4 scenes. It's a great movie to watch, but this is if you watch all of this film, this is 4 hours of film, and that's 4 hours of film. You'll get the war if you watch it all. You'll really get the high points, and it covers all the reasons. There's dialogue with the officers are explaining, why am I fighting on the Confederacy? Why am I fighting on the Union? You see the different opinions. If you want to get the war between the states in a nutshell for homework, and you can do this for homework legitimately, it's going to be some of the best homework you ever do. Say, Mom, pick a day. I need that day. I need 8 hours with the TV. I've got to buy whatever. I gotta either get it online and watch it for free, rent it for $3 a movie and watch them all, or order them on Amazon, pay your $30 or whatever to get them both movies on DVDs. I think it's like $15. Amazon Prime ship it to you tonight. Watch them. You will get a ton out of it. That is the 2 sequels to so you get Rise to Rebellion by Michael Shayara. His son, Jeff Shayara, wrote these 2 books, Gettysburg and Gods and Generals. There's another book, The Last Full Measure, but it was never made into a movie. Watch it.
Last Full Measure, what is that about?
That's everything after Gettysburg. It's just a tragic book. It does show about the rise of Sam Grant, and it kind of closes the world. You're going to get it all, but if you can watch the first 2, because they were done in a movie, you're getting it in 8 hours, and you're getting it all. And they it's always hard to shrink a book into a movie. That's why they make it 4 hours. You guys can get through that. You will understand a big piece of American history, and you'll get it from both sides. I mean, they do such all the other movies. What is it? North and South, and there's another one. We're not going with the way, but there's two miniseries that don't do it right. This one, you get to know all of the characters that are in the movie. And there's guys, the men, the thing that's fascinating about this war to me is you admire the men on both sides. And you admire what they're fighting for, because they both have a reason. They both have reasons. Joshua Chamberlain in the North, you understand him. Ulysses S. Grant, amazing man. Amazing. Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, James Longstreet, Lothario Armistead, Winfield Scott Hancock, John Reynolds. Tragedy of John Reynolds, you'll see it in the movie. He might have been better than Hancock. He just doesn't live through the key moment that he needs to live through. Jeb Stuart, there's a great man. You watch him make some tragic mistakes. Dick Uhl, and on the line. When you begin to know, and when history leaves the pages and it becomes real people with real histories and real backstories that you understand, when you see something like Pickett's charge and you understand the emotions of the men behind this and the significance, it means something. When you watch Joshua Chamberlain leading the 20th Maine into Fredericksburg and his men getting massacred. Remember the scene we saw? Hail Caesar, we who are about to die, salute ye. He crosses the field in Fredericksburg, which is wickedly well defended. It's in reverse of it. You'll see these things. And you'll see that same character repeated. Stonewall Jackson, you'll get to understand him. He's a fascinating character in history. Okay. I'm done. I took the emotion out of it. I finished the story. I was going to save it, but Walker and Dan, you guys talked me out of it. Hopefully I didn't spoil the end for you. Hopefully instead I just baited the waters and you guys will appreciate it. We're going to close here. All right, that's it. Let me stop recording here. Let's see. Stop the recording.